Welcome to Empowered Living. I'm Ann Shu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. So if you're ready to live a life by design, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Empowered Living, the podcast where we explore the habits and conversations that help us build more intentional, resilient lives. I'm your host, Ann Shu, and today we're talking about money, specifically the role it plays in our relationships, our decision-making, and our self-worth. My guest today is Dr. Patty Ann, a relationship and communication expert, a financial consultant, and the author of Money Can Buy You Happiness. With decades of experience coaching entrepreneurs and couples, Dr. Patty Ann brings a powerful perspective on how financial intimacy and emotional intelligence intersect. In this episode, we talk about why couples don't fight about money. They fight about what money represents, the difference between financial transparency and financial intimacy, and how to shift your money mindset to support both personal growth and partnership. Let's dive in. Hi, Dr. Patty Ann. How are you? I'm so excited to have you here today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I can't wait to have this conversation with you because we are both passionate about having people be successful in both their business and their personal lives.
Yes.
Because I don't know about you, but you can have it all. You just need a strategy.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so let's just dive into emotional intelligence because I know this is what you're passionate about. It's what you teach about and what you coach on. So let's just summarize what is emotional intelligence and why is it important?
Oh my gosh. Great question. I didn't know you were going to ask about that, but I am passionate about it. So most people are familiar with the concept of the four quadrants of emotional intelligence as described by Daniel Goleman, right? His first book was Emotional Intelligence. His second book is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Incredibly creative. I know. It's a very accurate description when you talk about the four quadrants of emotional intelligence, but I don't find that particularly helpful in being able to operationalize it. So I've created my own definition of intelligence, and I describe emotional intelligence as the ability to identify your emotions in real time so that you can respond appropriately while simultaneously being able to be aware of what the other person's emotions are so you can respond accordingly. So emotional intelligence encompasses the concept of our own self-awareness and having enough self-awareness to be aware of what the other person is feeling. Because if we don't know what we're feeling, then we can get confused that what the other person is feeling is not really what they're feeling, but it's what we're feeling. Right? And the easiest way, what's really great and why I love working with emotional intelligence is that unlike IQ, which has a bandwidth of a certain range throughout most of our life, like we can gain knowledge, but we can't gain our emotional quotient, which is how quickly we innately can consume knowledge. But we absolutely can increase our emotional intelligence significantly over time. And the way we do that is we'll go to the classics of Socrates, the wisdom of the ancient Greeks. Know thyself. And what's the easiest way to know thyself? To know thy triggers and what triggers you. And I could go on about that, but I think that's all you need for now.
I love that. And I have a full day workshop called Know Thyself.
You do? Oh, and what are you covering? What are you covering in it?
So we talk about values and who you are at your best, at your worst, what's your big vision for your life, how do you actually make that a reality, how all of that is tied to really being allowing you to show up as your best self, doing this me work to really know who you truly are.
And what's amazing, I mean, that is great, Anne, because what's amazing is many people go throughout their entire life with no clue who they are. So if I've coached a physician or an attorney or a businessman, if I ask them who they are, they will tell me, well, I'm a physician, I doctor, or I'm an attorney, or I'm a finance guy. And I'm like, no, no, no. That's what you do. That's not who you are. So, especially in the West, we define ourselves by our roles, but that's not who we are. And that's why when you take someone's role away, if somebody loses a job, they can literally collapse. It's also why women that dedicate an inordinate, disproportionate amount of time to their children. Now, disproportionate, inordinate, right? All of that to their children. When their children leave, they are also devastated.
Mm.
So, I mean, our children, yes, can be the center of our universe, but not the only thing in our universe. That's a different conversation.
Okay, so let's talk about emotional intelligence in the workplace. How do you know when you're making a mistake with regards to emotional intelligence? Like, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen in the workplace?
Well, the most obvious one is you are intellectually wickedly smart.
Mm.
Like you really are the smartest person in the room, and you keep getting passed over for promotions.
Mm.
And it makes no sense to you because you're the smartest person in the room. You're the hardest working person on the team. But if you scratch the surface, you will find out that these people do not know how to be a team player. They do not know how to collaborate. They do not know how to step back and not be reactive. And usually these are the people that people might go to them for advice, but don't want to work with them.
Mm.
They're hard to work with because, to say it in a nutshell, they're just not nice. They don't play nice in the sandbox, and we all know who they are. We all know who they are. And so if you have somebody on your team that doesn't have a high level of emotional intelligence, there is such thing as a team emotional intelligence. That team will not be as productive as they could be otherwise because you have an anchor holding them down, because a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? And in a group, everybody knows who the person is that doesn't have high emotional intelligence. They may not label it that. It will be he constantly interrupts. He has no idea how to communicate. He has absolutely no empathy. He comes in my room or sends me an email, wants me to drop everything and work on his problem. It's not just about you.
Yeah, yeah. What about at home? How do we help cultivate emotional intelligence in our kids?
So honestly, the answer to that question, and I've said this before and I might get into trouble, I feel like we are in the midst of an epic parenting failure. And when you think about the role of a parent, it is to teach children to use their words, to not hit, as they get older, to regulate their emotions in such a way where they're not impulsive. They don't grab the first thing they want to see from the little kid, right? So at home, you teach your children how to be empathic, how to to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Yes, I understand you would like that toy, or I understand this is your toy, but you've been playing with it for 10 minutes. How do you think the other person feels that would like to play with your toy? Have you ever been in a situation where you've wanted to play with somebody's toy? And then it goes on and on and on. And then you incorporate values. And you don't just steal and you don't just cheat when somebody's not watching.
Mhm.
You instill the values that you don't cheat because cheating is wrong. You don't steal because stealing is wrong. It's a part of knowing who you are and internalizing the values of your family, which is why family is so important. And then also, as children get older, especially the teenage years, who they hang with is so important, because you're the sum total of the 5 people you hang with. And they, not to depress parents out there, but during the teenage years, who your child hangs out with is much more important to them than who you are. And that's why kids from good families, or a kid that's good innately, you put him with a bad group of kids, he's going to behave badly.
Yeah.
That's why you need to know who your children are hanging with.
What do you recommend for parents who might need to work on developing their own emotional intelligence? So they might not be modeling healthy emotional intelligence for their kids. Where do you recommend that they start? How should they work on improving their own emotional intelligence, knowing that it is impacting what they're modeling for their kids?
Right. So if we go back to what we said earlier, right? Emotional intelligence is the ability to identify and respond to your emotions in real time so they don't control you. This is not for the faint of heart, but if you want to do the work, the rewards will be tremendous. Ask the people around you for I'm going to call it constructive criticism or feedback.
Mhm.
Ask them, what kind of a listener am I? How do I communicate? If there's 2 things about me that I could improve upon that would make me a better person, what would you suggest? If you ask 2 people in your, and oh, by the way, ask your children, they will be brutally honest. Like brutally honest. Of course, it's, age appropriate, but ask your spouse, right? Your spouse unconditionally loves you. And, they might say, listen, yeah, I love you. I love, no, really. Everybody can improve. I want to be a better version of me. And then they'll tell you. And then you ask 2 good friends. And then you ask 2 good colleagues. So now you have 6 people that know you well, that you trust. You will see a pattern emerge. When I do team building exercises, you go to the source of truth, and that is the people that live with you and that work with you. And if you have childhood friends, that's a given. And in terms of somebody that doesn't have high emotional intelligence, many times these are the people that can't maintain friendships because they don't understand the value of give and take. They don't understand that it's about the other person and not about you.
Mhm.
And that's actually very sad.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep, that does. Okay,
I
so
mean, they have this wheel chart, like they have all these complicated ways you can take these tests. Let's keep it simple. Life's too complicated as it is.
other than asking what kind of listener am I? How do I show up? What other questions should we be asking if we want feedback?
What's the last, have I ever done anything to you that upset you,
Mm.
but you didn't want to tell me because you didn't want to hurt my feelings? Or did I ever do something that surprised you? Not in a good way, but you didn't say anything to me because you didn't think it was such a big deal. Like, focus on your behavior as it relates to somebody else. And that's the dynamic of self and other, self and social.
How do
How
you
can I be a better teammate at work? How can I be a better spouse? How can I be a better friend? Like, I know you don't want to hurt my feelings. I will love you anyway, but it will help me. We only tell people the truth that we care about. Otherwise, we don't care. So who cares? We're not going to tell them because we don't want to deal.
Yeah. What would you say to the people that are listening and one of the first things that might be going through their mind is, well, I've been living this way for 40, 50, 60 years. I'm not going to change now, and they almost feel hopeless in their ability to change. Or maybe their mindset is, well, this is just who I am. You just take it or leave it. If you don't like it, then so be it.
Well, then this doesn't apply to the person that's asking to improve their emotional intelligence, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, because even if it is somebody that's 50 and 60 and they're asking, what I would say is, and I really believe this, where there's a will, there's a way.
Mm.
Like, look, imagine how much better your life would be, really your relationships would be, if you could learn to be more empathic, if you could be a better listener, if you could be a better communicator, which might include learning to say nothing. That sometimes is the deafening, what is it? The silence was deafening,
Yeah.
right? So, but you're asking me about giving,
The people that
speaking
don't
to,
even want to ask for the feedback because they feel like this is who I am, take it or leave it, right?
okay, so in a work setting, if you're the manager or you're the boss and you're doing a review, as the leader, it is your responsibility to provide feedback so that the person can enhance their performance. And all success, I'm a little bit like to a hammer, everything is a nail for me. All success is predicated upon the ability to create, nurture, and sustain healthy relationships. Right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with somebody else. So as the leader of a team, you could say to somebody, you preempt what you're going to say with, you can joke, like I can joke. And I could say, don't hate me because I'm beautiful. You're really not going to like this. And you're really, to defuse the situation, depending upon your relationship. And then you share something. And then they're like, oh my God, I thought you were going to tell me I was dying. Then it's not as big. But in a normal situation, you would say, you know, I want to speak to you about work here. Like A, B, and C is awesome. You're off the charts. However, there's certain areas that needs improvement. And I'm sharing this with you because I believe in you and I know it will get to help you reach your full potential. You need to improve in these areas. And then I always say, I would suggest, is anything you think would apply to that? And sometimes if you ask it that way, you've stroked their ego. And I don't mean in a manipulative way, but maybe it is a manipulative way. And now they're open to knowing what they already knew, but they didn't want to deal with it. But if they don't know, and some people are clueless, you would share and say, you've developed a reputation for being a bully. Well, what do you mean by that? And then you just give the facts, right? And then you talk about how they can improve that. Or people seem to feel that you are constantly talking over them and they feel devalued. Now, many people, when you share this lack of emotional intelligence quality with them, feel terrible. Like, oh my gosh, that wasn't my intention at all. I'm sure it wasn't, right? But that's how it's being perceived. So we need to work on that.
Okay, so let's shift a little bit and talk about money personalities because I know that you talked about this before, and this is something that really I think is so important in thinking about how we make financial decisions. So, can you explain the money personalities, what they are, and how do we use
Okay.
them?
Hopefully I'll remember all of them. So I talk about this a lot with financial people when I coach them and with their clients and their teams. So I've created 5 money personalities because the truth of the matter is money is just a commodity. It's the emotion that we attach to money that makes it like the number 1 or 2 things that couples fight about, depending upon whose research you're reading at the time, right? Money or sex, it swaps, which is 1 and which is 2. So if you understand the emotion that somebody attaches to money, it will help you understand how they behave towards money. So the first money personality that I describe is called the compulsive money saver. And that is and now, it's a continuum, right? But use the extreme for an example. So the person that I describe as the compulsive money saver is the character Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Tale, right?
Yeah.
And this is the guy that hoards money and he stuffs it under his bed and he cannot spend it at all. Like it gives him anxiety to spend it because he attaches security. The emotion he attaches to money is security. And the more he sees his money accumulate, the more secure he feels and confident. As it goes down, if he were to spend it, which he won't, he will get more anxious. So this was a guy, the story goes, that his mother died or was out of the picture, and his father pretty much dumped him in like a boarding school. rarely came to visit him. He very much felt abandoned, and he didn't really have any friends. And then over time, he learned to be astute in business, and money became his friend because money and making money was the only thing that he could really control. So you can see for someone like that, we think of them as hoarding their money. But if you could look at the hoarding as it's a shield to protect them, then you can come to that personality with much more empathy, right? So this person, do not ever ask them to invest in your startup. They're not even buying your daughter's Girl Scout cookies. Forget about it. They are not letting go of their money. You could squeeze the buffalo off a nickel and they're not spending it if they still make buffalo nickels that way. So that's the compulsive money maker. The diametrically opposed personality is the compulsive money spender. And this is the person that the compulsive saver. Wait a minute, let me see. I haven't, it's the
The first one
saver,
is the
and,
saver.
and now it's the spender. So this is the person that doesn't think about spending money at all. She doesn't worry about it. It comes, it goes. She is Shopaholic Sally, I call her. And this is the person that sees money and attributes that to her feeling good about herself. So many times, the person that is the Shopaholic Sally, she is the person that grew up in a home where perhaps something went wrong in her life. Boyfriend broke up with her. She didn't make the varsity team. She didn't get into the college she wanted. Kicked her out of her friend group. This is the person whose parents didn't really have the skill to ask her how she was feeling and communicate about it. What they would say is, don't worry about it. Let's go get a toy. You know what? Let's go shopping. Right? So what happens is when this person swipes the credit card or gives the money or hits the send, buy button, there's a dopamine hit, right? And that dopamine hit, even though it's fleeting, gives pleasure for a moment, but it's very fleeting. And that's why you have to go and do it again. So whenever life has an uncomfortable feeling, which probably happens 100 times a day, the shopaholic Sally doesn't understand how to process that. So they go and they buy things so that they can feel the feelings that they're avoiding feeling because they were never taught how to process that. Right. And that helps you explain the person. You go into their closet and they have all these dresses with the tag still on it. It's not about the dress. It's about the purchase. It explains the guys that have all the cars or have all the cigars or, 27 different brands of golf clubs kind of thing, right? I mean, it crosses all socioeconomic boundaries. So that's a shopaholic Sally. Then you have the compulsive money maker. And that's personified by the character that Leonardo DiCaprio played in The Wolf of Wall Street by Jordan Belfort, right? And to this person, and again, it's a continuum, right? Right? This person, money is everything. Like to the extreme, money is their God. It's like Bernie Madoff. This character, their self-worth is attributed to their self-esteem. It's not about the money. It's about their self-esteem. So this is the person that's the big man on town. He always has to buy things. He goes out to dinner. Doesn't matter what you're celebrating. He has to make a show of paying for it because it has to be about him. The money maker, unlike the hoarder, is he will spend it as fast as he makes it because it's very important to him for you to know how successful he is. Very important. So that's the compulsive moneymaker. This is the entrepreneur that as soon as the deal closes, they're on to the next one. This is the guy that keeps focusing on the next big deal, right? A lot of them are on Wall Street. Then you have, who I call laissez-faire Laura. And this is the person that never ask her how much anything costs. She doesn't know. She doesn't care. We should live on rainbows and lollipops. Money is irrelevant. Trying to get this person to create a budget, a snowball has a better chance in hell, let alone live by one. They're totally divorced from the reality of money. Now, normally this person grew up in an affluent home where money was never an issue, right? And things were just taken care of for them. And it works until it doesn't. So if they marry an affluent man and they get divorced, all of a sudden they might have nothing. The stock market crashes. This is what happened during the roaring 20s. All of a sudden they have nothing. Somebody in your family gets an illness and the medical expenses are leading you to bankruptcy. So the laissez-faire Laura will never die of a stroke or a heart attack, certainly not worrying about money, but they're very vulnerable to financial losses that are unexpected because they're not prepared for it. They just don't think about it. And then finally, and I hope I'm not boring you, the last one is the compulsive worrier. And I call this William the Worrier. And this is the person that no matter how well they're doing, no matter how much money they're making, they literally lay awake at night worrying about how they're going to lose their money. Stock market's going to crash. They're going to lose their job. COVID's going to happen. They will drive you crazy. You can't get this person to take a vacation. And if you finally do, they're like, I know what's going to happen. As soon as I get home, I'm going to lose my job. So this is the person, even though he may spend his money reluctantly, he really can't take the pleasures and enjoy the things that money can offer him because he's really worried about it. And this is the person and so he attaches a lot of anxiety to money. So this is the person that grew up in a home where oftentimes there was a very sudden loss of wealth. Somebody's home might have been foreclosed on and they didn't know about it. If somebody had a gambling problem in your family, and this happens, you literally lose your home overnight. So there's been some kind of traumatic event that was rooted in reality that stays with that person into their adult life, no matter how successful they are. This can be people that grew up in the Depression that had nothing, and no matter how much money they make, they're like, you can't spend that. Like, tomorrow we may have nothing. And these people like, Dad, you have $100 million in the bank. What are you talking about? Yeah, but you don't know. You never know.
Yeah. So do you see that in couples, people marry something that is opposite?
So people tend to think that, and there's an element of truth to that. But what you'll see with couples is there's usually more of a spender and more of a saver. Like I like to, again, narrow it so we can operationalize it. And that's where, to what you said earlier, if a family is saving for their first home, must do things together, right? And many times one partner will say, well, I don't want to know. You can't allow that because then that will allow for them to go over budget or to spend more than you have. And they will say, well, I didn't know. So there usually does tend to be a difference. And sometimes it is extreme, and that is a challenge. But other times there's, one person will be, look, I won't buy it unless I have a coupon for it. And the other one is like, well, you just buy it already, like just enjoy it. So you can balance each other out, because if one tends to be too much of a saver and the other one's like, come on, we can't take it with it when we go. And if someone tends to spend a little bit more than they should, you're like, hey, remember we wanted to save for that second home, or we have to pay for the kids for college. So there are different personalities. Sometimes they're more extreme than the other, but many times they're not. And look at how the parents live their lives. And many times you're either the exact replica of that or you overcompensate for it.
Yeah. How do you suggest that when couples are experiencing disagreement because of differences in money personalities, how do you suggest that they navigate those disagreements?
It's what we said earlier. Find out what the money represents. What's the emotional attachment? So if you look at spending, if money to you represents security and you have a difficult time spending, you need to have that conversation and what that's about, right? So you need to know, it's just like when a couple is fighting, it doesn't matter what they're fighting about, it's what they're fighting for. So is she fighting for security? Is she fighting to avoid anxiety? Is she fighting to feel better about her self-esteem? Money, it's the emotion we attach to money. It's not the money itself, which is not to say money is money.
So obviously, there's probably one of the money personalities that is more dominant than the others. Do you think there's value in understanding what the rankings are of two, three, four, and five in your, as an individual, or do you think it's important to just understand your main one? And then do you see that people have a blend of all five?
So it's a great question. The matter is, the truth of the matter is, most of us have a little bit of each. I would tend to say there's one or two that are more dominant. I would say it tends to be rare that you have just one that's dominant. For example, again, and it's a continuum. Let's say you tend to be the saver or the worrier, right? But marketers all know you put the impulsive items by the cash register, assuming you go to the store. I might be dating myself because you make an impulsive purchase, right? So they have a little bit of the impulsivity too, even though they tend to be more of a saver.
Yeah.
So there's usually a little bit of at least one or two. And then I don't know anyone that doesn't go for a year where they're not worried about money. But it's the extent to which we worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's super helpful. So, how is understanding your money personality important? Or let me ask again, why is understanding this money personality important for women and how they can advocate for themselves?
Okay, so honestly, as soon as you said that question to me, my brain went to it's just as important for women as it is for men. Like it's not more or less important. But I think the thought behind the question is women tend to have a more unhealthy relationship with money. Perhaps that's the stereotype. So women need to learn to empower their relationship to money by becoming fiscally savvy and knowledgeable.
Mm.
You know, in most couples, or at least I'll speak for myself, but I've worked with enough entrepreneurial couples, there's a sense of you divide and conquer, right? Like, you know the newlyweds at the store because they're both in the grocery store at 10 o'clock on a Sunday. I give that 6 months. You go to the grocery store, I'll go to the bank, you'll go to the cleaners, right? You divide and conquer. But when it comes to money, you both need to know where you're coming from. And then the woman needs to make sure she's aware of what's going on and not play damsel in distress or abdicate that. Because a marriage, look, I hate to break it to all the Valentines out there, but a marriage is as much a business relationship as it is a romantic relationship. And you are kidding yourself if you think otherwise. The big issue, I would say, the last 10 or 20 years is college debt. Like I know many professionals with a lot of dental, medical, law debt. Like it's insane. And the partner loves them unconditionally, but they're not taking on their debt, right? And so they have that agreement, like, we pay the bills, but that debt is yours. The truth of the matter is that debt that's yours is still that much less money you have to put into the pot. But there's a sense of you had a life before we were married, and that debt is not going to impact the marriage and what our goals are. And that can get a little bit complicated, but I think you must know what you value money, how you put your value into money. For example, we'll make it up. If you have $20,000 discretionary money to spend a year, I don't know if that's a lot or not. Don't rag on me, people. Do you want to buy 3 Prada bags? Does the guy want to go on full golf trips? Or do you decide as a family to build an extension, right? That's where, regardless of what your money personality is, you operate as a couple so that you let the money enhance your life. And maybe one year the wife picks and maybe the other year the other partner picks. But you have to have the conversation.
Yeah. What would you say to the moms that are staying home and they're not working and they're, you know, the financial contribution is coming mainly from their spouse, how do they continue to advocate for themselves in that situation?
Okay, so for the very small percentage of people that rings true for, from what I understand today, they're not working for pay, but they're absolutely working, right?
Absolutely.
Usually that arrangement and agreement has been a mutually decided upon agreement between both. And therefore, and this is, I would suggest this for couples if they're both working or if just one is working. It's not a recommended mindset for it's his money, her money, and then maybe we'll join together, right? It is our money. We are a family. We are united. You know, we rise together, we fall together. You want to make sure that the boat is rowing in the same direction. So the old school traditional, the wife is home taking care of the kids, which is invaluable. And the guy is out there slaying the dragon, bringing home the paycheck, right? It is still an equal decision in what you do. And I would suggest someone that's married to someone that doesn't agree with that, I'd rethink that relationship or have that conversation. Because now you're suggesting that more money suggests more power, and I'm not into that. That's absolutely ridiculous. Because good luck for the guy trying to stay home taking care of the 3 kids,
Right.
right?
Okay, so let's shift and talk about entrepreneurs who are trying to find this, success at work and then also success at home. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see in these entrepreneurial families that are, so busy at work, giving it all to, giving everything that they have to these businesses, and then also trying to make sure that they're living a very fulfilling, purposeful, intentional life at home?
So you just said it. You just said it. The entrepreneurs tend to give everything they have to their business. That is the challenge, and that's the mistake. Okay. And prior to you saying that, my answer would have been boundaries. You absolutely, as entrepreneurs, it is so. Here's my joke about being an entrepreneur. There's so much flexibility. We can work any 25 hours a day that we want, right? But the boundary comes into play in if you're with your partner and you have a business together, you have to find a way to, whatever time the day ends, the conversation about work ends, and then you go into spousal mode and or spouse and parental mode. That means no papers or emails at the dinner table, right? The other thing that I really, really, really strongly suggest is get the laptop out of the bedroom. The bedroom is for the intimacy of the couple in whatever that looks like, even if you're just laying there exhausted,
Mm,
doing nothing.
yeah,
You're not on here suggesting that even when you have nothing left, oh, I got to return this email,
yeah,
right? I want to talk to you about something. You just said you have no energy left. All of a sudden, you're returning an email, right? So you have to have very clear boundaries of when you're working and when you're not working. And for the working moms, it's true for the dads too, but women tend to feel more guilty about this. When you are working, work. Don't be worrying about the kids. Don't be feeling guilty about the kids. It's not serving them. They don't know you feel guilty. You can't do anything about it. And all you're doing is you're distracting yourself from being your best at work. And when you are at work, don't be feeling guilty that you're not and when you're at home, don't be feeling guilty that you're not at work and that you're not at home and that, oh, I have to return this, I have to return that, because now you're not being the best parent that you can be. So have the boundary. When you're at work, work. When you're at home, be home. Write the sticky note, make sure I called Ann and put it somewhere. But don't allow your energy to go to something that you're not absolutely present with at the time, because then you end up feeling like nobody gets the best of you.
yeah,
And then you're just a big ball of guilt.
yeah.
And it's the demise of a lot of relationships, right? And also, oh my gosh, when you were with your partner, be with your partner.
Mm,
Give it your undevoted attention.
yeah,
They deserve that too, as do you.
yeah.
Because people say, well, I'll wait and I'll put it on the back burner and I'll wait until the business reaches this level, that level, the other level. Guess what? There might not be anything to get back to.
How do you? So I think the problem is that business screams the loudest, right? If we ignore the business and the business problems, we feel like the business is going to implode. If we ignore family, sometimes people think, oh, well, they'll be there for me. And so, how do you shift that thinking so that we understand the importance and urgency of prioritizing family the same way that you prioritize your business?
So when you start the business, just like when you start your family, you have to be very clear on what that looks like and what you value. You have to set the priorities first. You don't start looking for the fire extinguisher when the house is on fire. And then you hold yourself and your partner agree to hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
Right? Now, are there times when you have to work through a deadline? Yes. But everything can't be an emergency. Everything can't be urgent. Otherwise, nothing's urgent.
Yeah.
And if you find that there's not enough hours in the day, great. You need to hire someone.
Yeah. What if you're married to the person that is continuing to prioritize work over family?
You
How
have
would
to have a
you?
conversation.
Yeah. What would you suggest that they say? How do you start that conversation? What does that sound like?
You remind them of what you agreed to when you started the business. That's my first book. Not tonight, dear. I've got a business to run, right? Enrich your marriage while prospering in your business. Say, have you noticed that you seem to be working a lot more when we're home? And I thought we had agreed to that we weren't going to do that. Help me understand what's going on. And then you have to take your, I mean, that might call for a very deep conversation. And again, it might call for hiring someone, but you might find out that you or your partner is a control freak and they're doing stuff they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other different conversation, but we're entrepreneurs. We also are subject to the shiny object syndrome, right? Oh, I went to this conference, this person mentioned, and you're off down that rabbit hole.
I don't know anything about that.
No, yeah, me neither. Me neither. I am so focused.
Okay.
Especially with AI today. Oh my gosh, it's really, there's never been a more exciting time to be an entrepreneur in my book. But again, to me, every hammer, it's a nail.
So we talked about a lot today. What is your number one piece of advice for couples what's your number one piece of advice for couples to really make sure that they are building healthy, strong, thriving relationships?
At the end of the day and on your bed, on your deathbed, nobody has ever said, I wished I worked more. Whether you're an entrepreneur or not, nobody's ever said that. The regrets are always around not nurturing or neglecting relationships. That's what life is all about.
Yeah.
All about that.
Good. Okay, Dr. Patty Ann, can you share if somebody's listening and they want to get in touch with you, if they want to learn more about your work, get some of your books, work with you, can you share with the listeners how they can do that?
Sure. Thank you. So basically, I always direct people. I'm on all the social media platforms as Dr. Patty on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever it's called. But I tell everybody go on LinkedIn. You'll really get a sense of all my work on LinkedIn. My 2 books are on Amazon. Everything's under my brand name, Dr. Patty Ann Tublin, Pattyann, and subscribe to my newsletter. And you can find out how to reach out to me there. I think it's the info at Dr. Patty, and I just got a new assistant. I'm not sure what it is, but if you want to reach me, you can find me, and it will be worth it.
Okay, that's great.
Thanks.
And we'll include all those links in the show notes as well so people
Thank you.
can access them.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you so much. I enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
You're welcome. It was great.
Thanks for tuning in to Empowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them, because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.